The deepest wound in this age isn't the ache in your stomach when the clock says you should still be fasting. It isn't even the tremor in your hands when the smell of bread drifts past. No, the wound is quieter, colder, more bureaucratic. It is the moment your own flesh becomes a spreadsheet. Every mouthful enters the ledger as evidence of virtue or evidence of collapse. You cease to be a living creature taking in fuel. You become the exhausted clerk who must justify every line item. The humiliation is not that you want food. The humiliation is that wanting has been downgraded to arithmetic, a 3-figure specter printed in tiny font on the side of every box, whispering that your desire is measurable, taxable, punishable. We have turned the calorie into the basic unit of moral accounting. We do not merely record it. We worship it, bargain with it, plead with it like supplicants before a faceless tribunal. Food is no longer sustenance. It is indictment or exoneration, a silent accomplice or a public betrayer. Every plate is a battlefield where the stakes are nothing less than the right to exist without apology. This is not about good foods versus bad. That is childish bookkeeping. This is an inquest into why we chase these particular ghosts at all, why we hunt for volume without weight, satisfaction without residue, nourishment that leaves no trace. We are trying to feed a body while starving a far older hunger, the hunger for significance, for permission to take up space, for a life that feels like more than damage control. This is the austere monument we build on our dinner tables, a gray altar erected to our dread of needing anything at all. We call it discipline, we call it health, but what we are really seeking is forgiveness. We believe we will finally be absolved if we can just make the numbers small enough. And so we fill our mouths with hollow, fibrous, water-heavy offerings, crisp ghosts of meals, hoping the crunch will convince us we are still alive. If these words land somewhere raw in you, if you recognize the cold tally running behind your own eyes, then stay. Subscribe if you want, as a quiet acknowledgement that you are not alone in this. Leave a like as a brief, wordless salute across the gulf. And if you feel like it, drop a comment, the name of your city and the single food that has become your private currency of restraint. Let us sketch the geography of this shared, unspoken penance. We begin where every human story of transgression begins, with fruit, the apple. We have spent millennia telling ourselves it was the first betrayal, the original overreach, but the real fall happened later, when we reduced that fruit to a data point, 95 calories, a tidy, portable unit of penance. You lift it to your mouth, believing you are enacting control, but you are reenacting an older drama. The crisp snap is the sound of knowledge breaking open, knowledge you now desperately wish to unknow. You want the sweetness without the consequence, the fullness without the fall. The fiber drags the moment out, slows the rush of sugar, as if you could stretch a single bite into eternity and never have to want again. You are trying to return to a garden that never actually existed, a place where appetite was innocent and bodies were not evidence. All that remains is the fruit and the number never blinks. Broccoli rises next, built like a dark cathedral of miniature spires. We call it a superfood, a marketing term that flattens its severity into something palatable. But broccoli is not palatable. It is uncompromising. It is stoicism you can chew. 31 calories per cup, an almost insulting density of intent. It stands there on the plate like a silent reproof to everything soft and immediate. The antioxidants sweep through the bloodstream like night janitors after a riot, clearing away the debris of yesterday's surrender. The fiber steadies the glucose, steadies the mood, keeps the wild swings of emotion from driving you back to the pantry at midnight. To eat broccoli is to draw a line in the dirt and dare the chaos to cross it. It is the vegetable of those who have decided that virtue can be tough, fibrous, slightly bitter, and still worth the effort. Chia seeds arrive almost unnoticed, tiny black specks that seem harmless until you submerge them. Then they swell, absorb, become something gelatinous and patient. 60 calories in a tablespoon, but what you are really swallowing is time. The slow expansion in the stomach is a temporary occupation of the future. You are annexing the next few hours, postponing the moment when hunger will demand negotiation again. The omega-3s slip into the brain like quiet reinforcements for the command center that must wage this war every single day. This is not a snack. This is a long-term strategy. This is food for the siege. Watercress drifts in like something half-remembered from a childhood beside a stream. It is peppery, wild, almost insolent in its refusal to be domesticated. Fat-free by ancient design, not modern engineering. It carries the taste of a world before counting, before every leaf had to justify its existence. The phytochemicals patrol the cells like an old, untamed immune system still fighting on instinct. To bite into watercress is to touch, for a fleeting second, a life where food was simply found, not audited. Celery is the cruelest sleight of hand. We tell ourselves stories about negative calories, about the body spending more to process it than it gains. A perfect erasure, but the truth is barer. 18 calories of mostly water and noise. The loud crunch is the only real payoff, an auditory masquerade of eating something substantial. The rest is dilution, a stomach swollen with liquid pretending to be satisfaction. Celery is the theater of restraint, all gesture, no substance. You perform the ritual of feeding without ever committing the sin of being fed. Cabbage comes wrapped in its own history, layers folded tight like letters never meant to be read. It fed armies on long marches, families through long winters. 33 calories per cooked cup, the currency of endurance. The antioxidants shore up the walls, while the world outside howls with temptation. The glow it lends the skin is the polished surface of a fortress, beautiful only because it has withstood siege after siege. To eat cabbage is to put on the armor of every ancestor who ever survived scarcity, and to mistake survival for transcendence. Brussels sprouts arrive like small, dense planets of judgment. Their bitterness is not a flaw, it is the entire point. Healing is rarely sweet. The fiber keeps blood sugar from rioting. The vitamin K stands ready to clot the slow bleed of resolve. Each sprout is a hard green lesson. The road you want is built from these small, acrid truths. Cauliflower is the master of disguise. 25 calories per cup, and yet it can impersonate rice, crust, mash, anything that once brought comfort. We call this clever, but it is closer to mourning. We are not inventing new dishes. We are holding seances for the dead. We grate and roast and season until the pale florets almost convince us we are eating the foods we loved before the arithmetic took over. We are dining on echoes. The carrot cuts through the soil like an orange blade. 50 calories in a cup of sticks, but the real work happens deeper, compounds that interfere with fat storage, a quiet sabotage of the body's own tendency to expand. The crunch is satisfying only because it feels like aggression directed inward, an internal insurgency waged with every bite. Cucumber is 95% water, wearing a thin green skin. It occupies space without claiming it. The anti-inflammatory compounds cool the low simmer of frustration that lives in the joints of anyone who has been at war with appetite for years. To eat cucumber is to practice a kind of edible meditation on blankness. Fennel carries a whisper of anise, a sudden licorice note in the monochrome symphony of restriction. It is the one moment The desert allows an oasis. The flavor refuses to apologize for existing. Even in scarcity, it says, there can be strangeness, personality, a hint of the unexpected. Garlic refuses subtlety. It storms the bloodstream, lowers pressure, fights infection, announces its presence for hours. It is not polite. It is not discreet. It is the food of someone who has decided that wellness can be loud, antisocial, undeniable. Leaf lettuce is the blank canvas, the negative space that makes the salad possible. It is mostly water dressed as structure. The vitamins are faint handwriting on an otherwise empty page. It waits to be filled and is never allowed to be. Arugula bites back, 5 calories per cup, and yet it carries an entire attitude. The peppery edge is disdain made edible. I may be austere, but I will not be boring. Soup is the final dissolution. Solid matter surrendered to liquid, so the body can be tricked about volume. You drink your meal and call it fullness. It is warmth without weight, nourishment without confession. Beets bleed red onto the cutting board, staining everything they touch. They remind you that beneath the clean numbers, there is still something visceral, animal, earthy. Asparagus spears upward with single-minded direction. 13 calories of pure vertical intent. It cleans up after excess the way dawn cleans up after night. Chard flaunts carnival colors on famine rations. It is bright defiance wearing the thinnest possible disguise. Grapefruit opens the day with a sour verdict. It is not refreshment, it is reprimand. Kale demands submission. You massage it, break it down, force tenderness from toughness. It is penance you can chew. Lemon water is the morning's first ablution. Acidic, cleansing, unforgiving. Onion makes you cry before you even taste it. It insists on emotional honesty. Bell pepper is a colorful container for emptiness. Choose your hue of nothing. Papaya is a brief tropical memory of pleasure now rationed. Radish is a sharp, sudden punctuation mark in the long sentence of restraint. Spinach is the tireless laborer, 7 calories of quiet, relentless service. Strawberry is the beautiful deceiver, sweet, vivid, low-calorie, and therefore suspect. Pleasure that asks no penalty is the most dangerous pleasure of all. Snap peas offer efficiency. Eat the pod, waste nothing, leave no evidence. Tomato bursts and stains. It is messy proof that control is always temporary. Watermelon is summer reduced to hydration and wishful thinking. Zucchini has no flavor of its own. It borrows whatever you give it and still remains essentially absent. Herbs, basil, dill, cress are the perfume sprayed on austerity to mask the underlying emptiness. Chilies trade one pain for another. The sharp burn distracts from the deeper ache. Mushrooms grow in darkness on decay. They are the taste of the shadow realm pretending to be dinner. Ginger is the quiet repair crew, fixing the damage that restraint itself inflicts. Jicama is exile made crunchy, the pale substitute for everything starch once promised. Clementine is sweetness engineered for compliance, easy, portable, just obedient enough. Oatmeal is gray mortar, 150 calories of glue to hold the day together. Every permitted addition, berries, seeds, a whisper of nut butter, is a negotiated truce with flavor. None of this is meant to mock the body's real need for fuel. The body is a fire, and fire must be fed. The betrayal lies in the story we have built around the feeding. We have turned the act of living into an apology for living. We chase these pale, voluminous ghosts not because we love life, but because we are terrified of taking up too much of it. Every watery crunch, every fibrous chew is a small vote for disappearance. We believe that if we can just become small enough, quiet enough, light enough, the world will finally grant us permission to exist. But permission was never the world's to give. Worth was never hidden in the angle of a hip bone or the reading on a scale. It lives somewhere deeper, in the unmeasurable fire behind the eyes, in the stubborn pulse that keeps beating long after every rational reason to quit. You are not a column of numbers waiting to be reduced. You are a long, unfinished story written in blood and breath and desire. The most radical thing you can swallow is the possibility that the story might be allowed to take up space, that it might even be allowed to be rich, dense, overflowing. Stop trying to edit it down to footnotes. Let it sprawl, let it hunger, let it live.